Princess Zara stood in front of her mirror, staring at the simple white shirt with growing panic. Her perfectly manicured fingers trembled as she tried to figure out which hole was for her head. After 3 failed attempts, she let out a frustrated cry that echoed through her luxury escape pod. "Computer, I require assistance," she called out, but no soft blue light appeared. No gentle AI voice answered her call. The computer system had died during her emergency landing on this primitive planet called Earth. Zara looked around her crashed pod, now stuck in the middle of a forest. The sleek white walls were covered with delicate patterns that usually glowed with soft light, but now they were dark and lifeless. Her royal wardrobe lay scattered across the floor, beautiful dresses made of materials Earth humans hadn't even discovered yet. But she couldn't wear any of them. Without the AI to help her dress, they were as useless as space junk. The princess had never dressed herself before. On her home planet, Luxaria, everything was automated. From the moment she was born, AI assistants had taken care of her every need. They dressed her, fed her, and even brushed her teeth. The thought of doing these things herself had never crossed her mind. But now, as she sat half-dressed in her escape pod, reality was hitting her hard. She had run away from an arranged marriage to Prince Vex of the Metal Empire, stealing this escape pod in the middle of the night. It had seemed like such a brave, rebellious thing to do. Now she wasn't so sure. Zara picked up the shirt again, determined to figure it out. She was a princess of the Crystal Kingdom. After all, surely she could master this simple earth clothing. She found what looked like the biggest hole and tried to put her arm through it. It was the neck hole. Again. "This is impossible," she shouted, throwing the shirt across the pod. How do humans do this every single day? Through the pod's window, she could see Earth's sun rising. It was nothing like the 3 suns of her home world, but it was beautiful in its own simple way. The forest around her was full of green trees, so different from the crystal forests of Luxaria. On her planet, even the trees were automated, changing colors on command to match the latest fashion trends. Zara's stomach growled, reminding her of another problem. She would need to find food soon. The emergency rations in the pod would only last a few more days. After that, she didn't want to think about it. She had never prepared food in her life. Back home, molecular assemblers created perfect meals based on her exact nutritional needs and cravings. The princess looked at her reflection again. Her long silver hair, usually styled perfectly by beauty bots, was a tangled mess. Her skin, naturally tinted with a subtle purple hue, looked pale from stress. The only thing she had managed to put on was a simple undershirt, and even that had taken nearly an hour to figure out. Suddenly, her pod's sensors beeped weakly. Someone was approaching. Zara's hearts, she had 2 of them, started beating faster. Was it Prince Vex's soldiers? Had they found her already? She rushed to the control panel, but the screens were dead. She couldn't even check who was coming. Zara heard voices outside, human voices speaking in their simple Earth language. She understood them thanks to her universal translator implant, one of the few pieces of technology still working. "Did you see that light in the sky last night?" "Yeah, looked like it came down somewhere in these woods." The princess froze. Humans were coming. They would find her soon. She looked at the shirt again, still lying on the floor where she had thrown it. She needed to get dressed. She needed to blend in. But how? For the first time in her life, Princess Zara of the Crystal Kingdom felt truly helpless. All her royal training, all her advanced education, all her high-tech privileges, none of it had prepared her for something as simple as putting on a shirt. The voices were getting closer. Soon, they would discover her pod. And they would find a half-dressed alien princess who couldn't even dress herself. Zara took a deep breath. Maybe it was time to learn how humans lived. Maybe these primitive beings could teach her something after all. She picked up the shirt one more time, determined to master it before the humans arrived. She had no idea that this was just the beginning of her adventure on Earth, and that learning to dress herself would be the easiest challenge she would face. Sarah Chen couldn't believe her eyes. There, in the middle of the woods behind her small fashion studio, sat what looked like a giant pearl split in half. But that wasn't the strangest thing. No, the strangest thing was the purple-skinned woman inside it, fighting a losing battle with a plain white t-shirt. "Do you need help?" Sarah called out, trying not to laugh as the stranger somehow managed to tangle both arms in one sleeve. Princess Zora spun around, her silver hair wrapping around her like a metallic tornado. Two sets of eyes, both a striking crystal blue, blinked at Sarah. The human woman took a step back, her sketchbook falling from her hands. "You have only one set of eyes," Zora observed, momentarily forgetting her struggle with the shirt. "How do you manage to see all the dimensions properly?" Sarah picked up her sketchbook, her designer's mind already racing. The strange woman's proportions were perfect, too perfect, like someone had taken the golden ratio and turned it into a person. "I manage just fine," she said carefully. "Though right now I'm seeing that shirt is winning the fight against you." Zora's lower lip trembled. "On my world, we have AIs to handle such primitive tasks." She tried once again to find the neck hole, failed, and let out a sound that made the birds flee from nearby trees. "I am Princess Zora of the Crystal Kingdom, and I cannot even dress myself." Sarah approached slowly, her practical nature taking over. "Well, Princess Zora, I'm Sarah Chen, and dressing people is literally my job. I'm a fashion designer." She reached for the shirt. "May I?" Zora nodded, her silver hair catching the sunlight in ways that shouldn't be possible. Sarah gently untangled the shirt and held it up properly. "Arms up," she instructed. "Up where?" Zora asked, looking utterly lost. "Like this." Sarah demonstrated, and slowly, like teaching a child, helped the alien princess put on the simple white shirt. "There. Not so hard, right?" Zora stared at herself in amazement. "You are clearly a master of primitive clothing technology. You must teach me your ways." Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "First lesson. We just call it clothes here. And sure, I'll help you. But maybe we should get you out of these woods before someone else finds you." She gestured at the pod. "Very shiny spaceship." The princess's face fell. "But I have so much more to learn. I cannot even operate your human tooth-cleaning rituals. On Luxuria, sonic waves clean our teeth while we sleep." "You mean brushing teeth?" "Yeah, we'll cover that too." Sarah looked at her watch. It was only 7 a.m. Her first client wouldn't arrive until noon. "Come on, my studio's just through these trees. We can figure out the rest there." As they walked, Zora peppered Sarah with questions about everything. Why did humans still use their legs for walking when they could use hover technology? Why did they allow their hair to stay one color instead of changing it to match their moods? How did they survive without AI assistance for basic tasks? Sarah answered each question patiently, finding herself charmed by the princess's genuine curiosity. The studio wasn't far. A converted barn with high ceilings and huge windows. Dress forms lined the walls, and fabrics in every color imaginable filled the shelves. Zara stopped at the entrance, her 4 eyes wide with wonder. "Your primitive textiles. They're beautiful." She reached out to touch a piece of silk, then quickly pulled her hand back. "Oh, I apologize. On my world, touching another's possessions without AI permission is considered highly rude." "It's okay," Sarah assured her. "This is a fashion studio. Touching the fabrics is kind of the point." She watched as Zora cautiously stroked the silk, marveling at its texture. "We have nothing like this on Luxuria," the princess whispered. "Our clothes are all generated by molecular assemblers. They're perfect, but they don't feel like this." Sarah was about to respond when a news alert buzzed on her phone. Her blood ran cold as she read the headline. "Unusual aerial activity reported worldwide. Military sources suspect possible extraterrestrial contact." Zora peered at the phone screen, her face paling to a lighter shade of purple. "Oh no. That would be my father's fleet. They're looking for me. She wrung her hands. The Crystal Kingdom has never made official contact with Earth before. This could start an interplanetary incident. Why did you run away? Sarah asked, already moving to close the studio's blinds. Just in case. I was to be married to Prince Vex of the Metal Empire. A political alliance. Zara touched the silk again, as if drawing comfort from its texture. He believes that organic beings are inferior to AI, that we should fully merge with our machines, give up our physical forms entirely. She looked at Sarah with all four eyes. I don't want that. I want to learn how to dress myself, how to brush my teeth, how to be real. Sarah nodded slowly, an idea forming. Then we better make sure you can pass as human before those ships get any closer. She walked to her design wall, pulling down sketches. Lucky for you, I have a whole collection inspired by sci-fi fashion. We just need to hide your extra eyes and explain your skin tone as a new type of body modification. You would help me? Zara asked, hope filling her voice. Of course, though I have to warn you. My next lesson involves something humans call zippers. They're even trickier than t-shirts. Zara's face showed pure determination. Teach me everything. Outside, far above Earth's atmosphere, the crystal ships of Luxuria began their search pattern. But down in a converted barn in the woods, an alien princess and a human fashion designer were too busy laughing over the mysteries of shoelaces to notice. The real adventure was just beginning. Learning to live. And this, Sarah said, holding up a steaming cup, is hot chocolate. No AI molecular assembly required. Princess Zara stared at the brown liquid with all four eyes, her silver hair shimmering in the morning light that streamed through Sarah's apartment windows. It had been 3 Earth days since their first meeting, and each day brought new wonders. But how can it be safe? Zara asked, sniffing the drink cautiously. No computer has analyzed its nutritional content. No algorithm has adjusted its temperature to my exact biological preferences. It could be dangerous. Sarah couldn't help but smile. Sometimes the dangerous things are the most worth trying. Zara took a tiny sip. Her eyes, all of them, went wide. By the crystal moons. This is. She took another, bigger sip. The molecular assemblers back home never made anything that tasted like this. That's because they're missing the most important ingredient, Sarah said, sitting down across from her at the small kitchen table. What ingredient is that? Imperfection. Sarah watched as Zara considered this while drinking more hot chocolate. You know, sometimes the best things in life aren't perfect. They're just real. The princess was quiet for a moment, looking down at her hands. She had managed to dress herself that morning, mostly. Her shirt was only slightly wrinkled, and if one of her socks was inside out, well, that was progress. I'm starting to understand that, she said softly. Their peaceful moment was interrupted by a breaking news alert on Sarah's television. The holographic display, a technology that had become common on Earth in recent years, showed crystal ships hovering over major cities worldwide. The alien vessels continue their mysterious patrol of Earth's atmosphere, the reporter said. While they have made no hostile moves, global leaders are demanding answers. Meanwhile, social media is buzzing with reports of a strange purple-skinned woman spotted in various locations. Sarah quickly turned off the TV. We need to work on your disguise. Those dark glasses hide your extra eyes well enough. But the purple skin. Actually, Zara interrupted, pulling up her sleeve. Look. Sarah gasped. The princess's purple skin had begun to take on a more human tone. How? It seems my biological adaptation systems are finally working. On Luxuria, our bodies naturally adjust to match our environment. Usually, the AI systems suppress this ability to maintain our pure forms. But, she smiled. Without them, I'm becoming more like you. Their celebration was cut short by a knock at the door. Both women froze. Sarah, it's Marcus from the boutique next door. There's some guys in suits asking questions about strange lights in the woods. Sarah quickly pushed Zara toward the bedroom. Hide. I'll handle this. As Zara huddled in the closet, appreciating the irony of finally understanding how to use clothes just in time to hide among them, she heard Sarah talking to the men. Their voices were muffled, but their tone was official, demanding. Just some new LED designs I was testing for a fashion show, Sarah was saying. You know how it is with avant-garde fashion. Always pushing boundaries. Zara held her breath, clutching one of Sarah's soft sweaters. It still amazed her how Earth clothes could feel so real. Everything on Luxuria was made of smart materials that adjusted themselves. Nothing ever wrinkled or tore. Nothing had history or character. She looked at her hands again, watching as the purple continued to fade. Was she losing her royal heritage? Or was she finally becoming who she was meant to be? The voices at the door grew louder. One of the men was insisting on searching the apartment. Sarah was refusing, citing Earth laws about warrants and rights. Zara's heart raced. She couldn't let her friend get in trouble for protecting her. Making a decision, she grabbed one of Sarah's design notebooks and a pen. Actual physical writing tools that had fascinated her since she first saw them. Quickly, she wrote down everything she knew about Luxurian crystal technology. If Earth was going to face her people, they deserved to be prepared. She could hear Sarah still arguing at the door. Look, if you want to see strange lights, you should check out the new nightclub downtown. Their laser show is amazing. Zara smiled. Her friend was clever, using Earth's chaos and creativity as a shield. On Luxuria, such deception would be impossible. The AI systems monitored everything, ensuring perfect order and perfect honesty. Perfect, sterile, empty order. Looking around the closet, at the jumble of colors and textures, at the slightly wrinkled clothes and scuffed shoes, each telling its own story of adventures and mishaps, Zara made another decision. She wouldn't let Prince Vex turn her people into emotionless digital beings. She wouldn't let the AIs strip away everything that made life beautifully imperfect. The voices at the door finally faded. A few minutes later, Sarah opened the closet. They're gone. But they'll be back. We need to. She stopped, seeing the notebook in Zara's hands. What's that? Knowledge, Zara said, standing up. Her skin was now almost completely human-toned, though it still held a slight iridescent sheen. And a choice. I can't keep hiding forever. But maybe I can help Earth prepare for what's coming. And maybe, she touched the soft sweater she had been holding. Maybe I can help my people remember what it means to really live. Sarah took the notebook, flipping through pages of elegant alien script interspersed with drawings. You're going to reveal yourself. Not yet. First, I need to learn more. About Earth. About humans. Zara smiled. About how to make hot chocolate. Will you help me? Of course. Sarah hugged her friend. But you should know, you still have your shirt on backwards. Zara laughed, a sound like crystal bells. Perfect. Above them, the crystal ships continued their search. But they were looking for a perfect purple princess who needed AI for everything. They would never find her. She didn't exist anymore. Instead, there was just Zara, standing in a closet full of imperfect, wonderful Earth clothes, planning to save two worlds, one wrinkled shirt at a time. Secret identity. Sarah's fashion studio was hosting its first major show, and everything was going wrong. The lights were flickering, the music system was glitching, and one of her top models had just quit. But none of that worried her as much as watching Zara try to walk in high heels. I don't understand, the alien princess said, wobbling dangerously. Why would humans create shoes that actively try to kill them? Fashion isn't about logic, Sarah replied, catching Zara before she fell. Besides, you're the one who insisted on being in the show. Of course I did. Your designs are inspired by my people's crystal technology. Who better to model them than an actual crystal princess? Zara had finally mastered the heels enough to strike a pose. Besides, hiding in your apartment was getting boring. Sarah had to admit Zara had a point. The collection she was about to show had come straight from her memories of Zara's crashed pod, all geometric patterns and iridescent fabrics that seemed to change color as they moved. And with Zara's skin now maintaining a human appearance, though still with that subtle shine, she was the perfect model. Just remember, Sarah warned, adjusting the special sunglasses that hid Zara's extra eyes, no floating. Humans don't float, even when they trip. One time, I got startled one time and accidentally activated my residual anti-gravity field. Zara protested, but she was smiling. Their playful moment was interrupted by a commotion at the studio's entrance. Sarah's heart stopped when she saw who had just walked in, Vincent Maxwell, the famous tech billionaire known for his cutting-edge AI research. "Mr. Maxwell," Sarah's assistant rushed forward. "We weren't expecting you." "I go where innovation calls," Maxwell said smoothly, his cybernetic eye scanning the room. "And I've heard interesting things about this collection." Very interesting things. Zara had gone completely still. "Sarah," she whispered, "that man, his cybernetic enhancements. What about them?" "They're metallic empire technology. Primitive versions, but definitely from Vex's people. He shouldn't have access to that." Before Sarah could respond, Maxwell was walking toward them, his cybernetic eye focusing on Zara with uncomfortable intensity. "And who is this stunning creature?" he asked. "Zara Chen." Sarah jumped in. "My cousin. She's modeling in the show." Maxwell's organic eye narrowed. "Chen. Interesting. You don't look related." "Family adoption is a beautiful Earth custom," Zara said smoothly, and Sarah had to hide her smile. The princess had been binge-watching human soap operas to learn about Earth culture. "Indeed." Maxwell circled Zara slowly. "You know, I've been developing some fascinating AI systems lately. Systems that could revolutionize the fashion industry, make human models obsolete." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. Sarah saw Zara's hands clench into fists. "But fashion requires humanity," Zara said firmly. "The little imperfections, the unique way each person moves, that cannot be replicated by machines." "Cannot." Maxwell's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Either of them. Or should not. Tell me, Miss Chen, what are your thoughts on human AI integration? The next step in evolution, perhaps." Before Zara could answer, the lights went out completely. When they came back on seconds later, Maxwell's cybernetic eye was glowing with a familiar crystal blue light. "Interesting," he said, but his voice had changed. It now had a metallic undertone that Sarah recognized from the news broadcasts about the alien ships. "Very interesting indeed." Zara stepped forward, placing herself between Maxwell and Sarah. "You're one of Vex's spies. And you're a long way from home, princess." Maxwell, or whatever was controlling him, smiled again. "Did you really think you could hide among these primitives? That you could escape your destiny?" "Earth is not primitive," Zara said fiercely. "These people have something we lost long ago. The courage to be imperfect, to feel, to truly live." Other people in the studio were starting to notice the confrontation. Sarah could hear whispers, see phones being raised to record. Maxwell's cybernetic eye flashed. "Your father's ships are not the only ones searching for you, princess. The Metal Empire has agents everywhere. Humans are so eager to embrace our technology, to upgrade themselves. They don't realize they're becoming our eyes and ears." "That's enough." Sarah stepped forward. "This is my studio, and you're disrupting my show. Leave now, or I'm calling security." Maxwell laughed. Human security against metallic empire tech. How charmingly naive. He turned back to Zara. "You have one day, princess. Give yourself up, or we start upgrading more humans. Starting with your new friend here." With that threat hanging in the air, he turned and walked out, leaving stunned silence behind him. "Well," Sarah said finally, "I guess we need a new plan." Zara was shaking, not with fear, but with rage. "He's right about one thing. I can't hide forever." She looked around the studio, at the beautiful clothes Sarah had created, at the humans who had gathered to celebrate creativity and imperfection and life. "Then don't hide," Sarah said. "Fight. And not alone. But I can't ask humans to risk themselves for me." "You don't have to ask." Sarah picked up one of her crystal-inspired dresses. "We're already involved. And if Vex thinks Earth is primitive," she smiled, "maybe it's time to show him what human creativity can really do." The fashion show was forgotten as they began to plan. Outside, the crystal ships of Luxaria still searched the skies, while hidden metal empire agents watched from the ground. But they were all looking for a helpless princess. Instead, they were about to face a revolution, one that would be fought with fashion, friendship, and the power of imperfection. And Zara was finally ready to lead it, even if she had to do it in high heels. The revolution begins. The basement of Sarah's fashion studio had become an unlikely war room. Mannequins wearing crystal tech-inspired designs stood guard over tables covered with sketches, computers, and pieces of salvaged alien technology from Zara's crash pod. But most striking was the wall of photos showing people with cybernetic enhancements, Maxwell's converts, growing in number every day. "That's 37 confirmed cases now," Sarah said, pinning up another picture, all showing signs of metal empire tech. Zara touched one of the photos, her now human-looking fingers trembling. "I recognize these control patterns. Vex is turning them into a hive mind. Once the conversion reaches critical mass, Earth becomes another metal empire outpost," finished a new voice. Marcus, from the boutique next door, stepped out of the shadows. His left arm now glowed with familiar crystal blue circuits. "Like I'm becoming." Sarah grabbed a baseball bat, but Zara held up her hand. "Wait, Marcus, you're fighting it." The man nodded, sweat beading on his forehead. "The implants tried to take over last night, but something about me is different. I'm resisting." He managed a weak smile. "Guess being a fashion designer makes me too stubborn to accept someone else's style." Zara moved closer, her extra eyes seeing beneath his skin through her special sunglasses. "The cybernetics aren't fully integrated. You still have free will." "But how?" "Because Earth fashion isn't about perfection," Sarah said suddenly. "It's about expression. Identity. Marcus spends his days helping people become more themselves, not less. No wonder his mind is fighting the uniformity." "That's it." Zara spun around, her silver hair catching the light. "The Metal Empire's technology requires submission to perfection. But humans—" She grabbed one of Sarah's designs, a dress that somehow captured the look of starlight on crystal. "Humans take perfection and deliberately make it imperfect. You add chaos to order, art to function." "Great theory," Marcus groaned, clutching his arm. "But how does that help us?" Before Zara could answer, the lights flickered. Sarah's computer screens filled with static, then showed Maxwell's face, both his human eye and cybernetic one now glowing with metal empire light. "Clever princess," his metallic voice echoed, "using human creativity as a weapon. But while you hide and plan, we evolve. Observe." The screen switched to live footage from around the city. People with cybernetic enhancements were walking out of their homes, their workplaces, all moving in perfect unison. Their movements were identical, mechanical, a horrible parody of a fashion show runway walk. "The Crystal Kingdom keeps their pets weak, dependent on AI for everything," Maxwell continued. "We of the Metal Empire free them from biological chaos. Perfect unity. Perfect order." Zara stepped forward, her royal bearing showing through despite her earth clothes. "You call this freedom? Look at them. They're not even people anymore, just extensions of your will." "Better than being extensions of machines that serve us," Maxwell sneered. "Your people can't even dress themselves without AI help. At least my converts have become part of something greater." "You're wrong," Sarah interrupted. "Fashion, art, creativity, they don't make us weak. They make us stronger. Every time we choose our own style, we strengthen our identity. Every imperfect, unique choice makes us more ourselves. Marcus straightened up, his cybernetic arms glow flickering. She's right. Your perfection. It feels wrong. Empty, like a blank mannequin. Interesting analogy, Zara said softly. Then louder. Sarah, your designs, they're not just inspired by crystal tech. They're the opposite of metal empire uniformity. What if we could broadcast that concept, that energy? Sarah's eyes lit up. The fashion show. The lights, the music, the patterns. We could turn the whole thing into a disruption signal. Foolish humans, Maxwell laughed. You think your primitive fashion show can stop technological perfection? No, Zara said, smiling now. We think human creativity can remind your converts what it means to be gloriously, beautifully imperfect. Marcus is proof. The more someone embraces individual expression, the harder it is for your tech to control them. She turned to Sarah. How quickly can you put together a show? Hours, maybe less with help. Sarah was already moving, pulling out designs. You have 30 minutes, Maxwell said coldly. Then my converts begin upgrading others by force, starting with this neighborhood. The screens went dark. Outside, they could hear the rhythmic marching of the cyber-converted. Can we really fight evil alien tech with a fashion show? Marcus asked, his arms glow steadily fading as he helped Sarah gather materials. Not just a fashion show, Zara said, picking up one of Sarah's crystal-inspired dresses. A revolution. Against both kinds of perfection. My people's dependency and Vex's mechanical uniformity. She looked at her reflection in a mirror, seeing both her human disguise and, through her special glasses, her true alien self. It's time to show both our worlds that humanity's beautiful chaos is not a weakness. It's the strongest force in the universe. Sarah handed her a piece of her crashed pod's crystal, now rewired and integrated into a stunning headpiece, ready to walk the runway and save the world. Zara took off her sunglasses, revealing all 4 of her eyes, ready to show everyone who I really am. Above them, the Crystal Kingdom's ships still searched while the Metal Empire's converts marched. Neither side understood what was coming. They thought they were fighting over Earth. Instead, Earth's greatest weapon, its endless creativity, was about to fight back. And it would be spectacular. The Fashion Revolution. The fashion studio had transformed into something between a runway and a battleground. Crystal shards from Zara's pod hung from the ceiling, rewired by Sarah to broadcast disruption patterns. The seats were filled with a strange mix. Fashion critics, celebrities, and scattered through the crowd, people with the telltale glow of Metal Empire cybernetics, fighting to maintain control of their own minds. 5 minutes until showtime, Sarah announced, rushing backstage where Zara stood in the final outfit. A masterpiece that combined Earth fashion with luxuriant crystal tech. The dress seemed to flow like liquid starlight, each movement creating ripples of color that somehow hurt to look at directly. The neural disruption patterns are woven right into the fabric, Zara explained to Marcus, who was using his partially converted arm to scan the garment. When I walk, it should create a cascade effect that. She was cut off by screams from the front of the studio. Maxwell had arrived, but he was no longer pretending to be human. His entire right side was now covered in Metal Empire cybernetics, his face half transformed into a metallic mask. Quite a turnout, he said, his voice echoing with mechanical harmonics. So many influential humans in one place. Perfect for a mass conversion. Sarah stepped forward. You're just in time for the show. Front row seat. Oh, I'll do better than that. Maxwell raised his metallic arm. All around the room, people with cybernetic enhancements stood in unison, their eyes glowing. I'll make it interactive. Backstage, Zara took a deep breath. Sarah, if this doesn't work. It'll work, Sarah said firmly, adjusting the crystal headpiece that would amplify the dress's effects. Because it's not just about the tech. It's about what the clothes represent. Identity. Choice. The right to be beautifully imperfect. Suddenly, the lights flickered. but not from Maxwell's influence. Through the studio's windows, they could see crystal ships descending from the sky. The Crystal Kingdom had finally found their princess. "Your father's forces," Maxwell laughed. "Too late to save Earth, but just in time to watch you fail." "How perfect." Zara looked at Sarah, tears in all four of her eyes. "I never wanted to start a war." "You didn't," Sarah replied, wiping away her friend's tears. "You started a revolution. Now show them what Earth fashion can really do." The music began, a remix Sarah had created combining Earth beats with the harmonic frequencies of crystal tech. Zara took her position at the start of the runway. Presenting, Sarah's voice rang out over the speakers, the Future Imperfect Collection. Model 1. The real Princess Zara of the Crystal Kingdom. Gasps filled the room as Zara stepped onto the runway, her dress catching the light in impossible ways. She had removed her sunglasses, all four eyes visible and proud. With each step, the dress released waves of disrupting energy. Maxwell's converts began to twitch, the perfect uniformity of their movements breaking down. Some clutched their heads, others began to move to the music's beat, each in their own unique way. "No." Maxwell surged forward, his cybernetic parts expanding. "The perfection cannot be broken." But it was. As Zara walked, the crystal shards above began to pulse in sync with her dress. The patterns reflected and amplified, filling the room with a dazzling display that was both beautiful and mathematically chaotic. Marcus's cybernetic arms sparked, then the blue glow faded entirely. Around the room, others were breaking free too. Some fell to their knees, others danced, each one remembering what it meant to move like themselves. Through the windows, they could see the crystal ships landing. Royal guards burst in, their eye-powered weapons raised, then stopped in confusion at the sight of their princess walking the human fashion runway. "Father," Zara's voice carried clearly as she reached the end of the runway. "Watch and understand what I've learned on Earth." She raised her arms, and the dress's disruption field reached its peak. The pattern it created was impossible, a perfect celebration of imperfection itself. The crystal ship's AI systems began to glitch, their perfect operational patterns disrupted by the chaos of human creativity. "What have you done?" Maxwell screamed, his mechanical parts starting to smoke. "Shown everyone the truth," Zara said. "Perfect order isn't evolution, it's extinction. True advancement comes from embracing chaos, creativity, and choice." The Crystal Kingdom guards were lowering their weapons now, many removing their AI assistance visors to watch with their own eyes. Even Maxwell's remaining converts were breaking free, laughing as they remembered how to move as individuals. "This is why I ran away," Zara announced, addressing both her father's forces and Earth's cameras. "Not just from an arranged marriage, but from the false choice between AI dependency and cyber conversion. Humanity showed me there's another way. Every morning, they choose their own clothes, style their own hair, create their own identity. It's messy, it's inefficient, it's beautiful." Sarah stepped onto the runway beside her friend. "And it's fashion, darling." Maxwell made one last lunge for the runway, but his cybernetic parts were failing, overcome by the chaos patterns in Zara's dress. He collapsed, his mechanical eye going dark. As the crystal ships powered down, their AI systems temporarily offline, Zora's father, the Crystal King himself, stepped into the studio. He looked at his daughter, standing proud in her Earth fashion, then at the humans around her, each one unique, imperfect, alive. "Perhaps," he said slowly, "it is time for the Crystal Kingdom to consider a new style." Zara smiled, taking Sarah's hand. "I know just the designer for the job." The fashion show had become something more, a revolution broadcast across two worlds. But for Zara, the most important change was simpler. She had finally learned not just to dress herself, but to be herself. And she had never felt more perfectly imperfect. A perfect imperfection. 1 year later, the Crystal Earth Fashion Summit was unlike any event in human history. The massive crystal dome, that had been constructed in Central Park sparkled with both technological and natural light, its surfaces displaying a constant dance of designs from both worlds. Inside, humans mingled with Luxurians, their styles creating a beautiful chaos that would have been unthinkable just a year ago. Zara stood at the center of it all, wearing a dress that could only exist in this new era. Earth fabric woven with crystal tech, but controlled by human creativity rather than AI. Her 4 eyes, no longer hidden, took in the scene with joy. "Still can't believe we pulled this off," Sarah said, joining her friend. The human designer had become something of a legend, her fusion of Earth fashion and alien technology sparking a revolution that went far beyond clothes. "Look at that." Zora pointed to a group of Luxurian nobles attempting to dress themselves in Earth formal wear. They were making a mess of it, but laughing. Actually laughing, as humans helped them figure out buttons and zippers. A year ago, they wouldn't have even touched clothing without eye approval. Sarah grinned. "And look over there." She nodded toward a group of former Metal Empire converts. The cybernetics they'd once been controlled by had been redesigned, turned into fashion accessories that enhanced rather than suppressed their individuality. Marcus led them in a dance that was beautifully uncoordinated. "Speaking of fashion statements," a deep voice rumbled. They turned to see Zora's father, the Crystal King, approaching. He had embraced the changes more dramatically than anyone had expected. Today, he wore a combination of his traditional crystal armor and what appeared to be a human leather jacket. "Father," Zora hugged him, no longer afraid to show such emotional imperfection. "The jacket suits you." "Yes, well," he tugged at the collar. "Your human friend here has taught our people that true power comes from choice, not control." He looked at Sarah. "Though I'm still not entirely convinced about these blue jeans she keeps recommending." Their laughter was interrupted by a commotion at the dome's entrance. Prince Vex had arrived, or what was left of him. After the fashion show revolution, most of his cybernetic army had broken free, choosing to remake themselves as individuals. Vex himself had been reduced to a single mechanical eye and arm, the rest of his metal parts rejected by a humanity that preferred creativity to control. "You've ruined everything," he growled, his mechanical eye flickering weakly. "Our perfect future was perfectly empty." Zara finished. She walked toward him, her dress shifting colors with each step. "But I'm glad you came. There's something you need to see." She gestured to the massive screens around the dome. They lit up with images from across both worlds. Luxurian children learning to dress themselves, laughing at their mistakes. Humans wearing crystal tech as fashion, each finding their own unique way to make it work. Former Metal Empire converts using their remaining cybernetics to create art, music, dance. "This is the future," Zara said softly. "Not perfect, but perfectly alive." Vex stared at the images, his organic eye widening. "But the chaos, the inefficiency, is exactly what makes it beautiful." Sarah stepped up beside her friend. "Want to know the best part? We saved you a spot on the runway." She held out a piece of clothing. A jacket that combined Metal Empire tech with Earth style in a way that had never been seen before. It was both mechanical and organic, structured and free. "Impossible," Vex whispered, but he couldn't look away from the jacket. "Only if you try to make it perfect," Zara said. "But if you just let it be what it is." Slowly, hesitantly, Vex reached for the jacket. His mechanical arm trembled as he put it on. The tech within it responded not with control, but with harmony, enhancing his movements rather than restricting them. I feel." He struggled to find the words. "Like yourself," Sarah suggested. For the first time in perhaps centuries, Vex smiled with his organic face. The Crystal King cleared his throat. "Well, now that the diplomatic crisis is resolved, perhaps we can get to the real reason for this summit." He nodded to Sarah. "Show them." Sarah grinned and clapped her hands. The dome's surfaces shifted, revealing her newest collection. The galaxy's next top species. The designs combine the best of all three cultures: Crystal Kingdom elegance, Metal Empire precision, and Earth's endless creativity. The universe is changing, Zara addressed the crowd. And fashion led the way. Because clothes aren't just about looking perfect, they're about expressing who you are, mistakes and all. She looked at her father in his leather jacket, at Vex discovering personal style for the first time, at Marcus and his cyber-enhanced dance crew, at Sarah's proud smile, at the humans and aliens all around them learning to embrace beautiful imperfection. A year ago, I couldn't even put on a shirt by myself, she continued, drawing laughs from the crowd. I thought I was running away from my responsibilities, from my people, from who I was meant to be. Instead, I ran toward something greater, the understanding that true evolution comes not from perfect uniformity, but from celebrating our differences. The fashion show began, but it was unlike anything either world had seen before. Each model, human, Luxurian, and even a few reformed Metal Empire converts, brought their own style to the runway. There were mistakes. There were surprises. There was life. You know what the best part is? Sarah whispered to Zara as they watched their vision come to life. This is just the beginning. Zara squeezed her friend's hand, all four eyes shining with happy tears. No, my dear human friend. This is perfect. And for once, she meant it in exactly the right way. Above them, the crystal dome sparkled with infinite possibilities. The era of forced perfection was over. The age of beautiful imperfection had begun. And somewhere in a small fashion studio, a simple white shirt still hung on display. The first piece of clothing an alien princess had learned to put on by herself. It was slightly wrinkled, a bit crooked, and absolutely perfect in its imperfection, just like all the best things in any universe.